Good morning, everyone. So, Respect, I'm sure a lot of you know that song by Aretha Franklin. They asked me to choose some music to walk out to, and it was actually a complicated question. But respect, I think, really ties with the theme of people. So respect our cities, respect our people. All of our cities actually have a personality, a collective personality that our residents, our elected leaders, our businesses, and others create, a social fabric, a rich culture, a unique history. And in most of our cities, there's this push and pull between old and new as our industries change. You know, here in Pittsburgh, what Jenny and others tell me is that there's been a shift from manufacturing to education, to medicine, to finance, to tech. And much of this change in employment means there's changes in who has access to those jobs. There's also displacement and gentrification. So for me, the people part of P4 is about respect. Respect of the historical communities in our cities and the history and culture that they help to create, ensuring our communities are part of our future. I heard about the talk last night as I was flying in, and I want to say that yes, Black and brown people are part of our future, are part of our neighborhoods. In my city, Oakland, California, there's a push and pull between old and new. We're at a crossroads, and perhaps we're further down one of those forks than Pittsburgh, where you might still have an opportunity to make the city a more just and sustainable city through the P4 project. And at the Partnership for Working Families, a key strategy to creating the types of cities that we've been talking about is organizing. So we're a national network of 19 affiliate organizations like Pittsburgh United. We're driving a progressive agenda to harness the power of cities and really leverage that to state and national change. Our powerful coalitions of community organizations, labor unions, faith networks, environmental organizations are building this idea of governing and building power in our cities, building grassroots power to advance cities that are just, sustainable, equitable, and democratic. And to achieve our vision, we campaign at the intersection of the economy, the environment, race, and democracy, running translocal campaigns that are rooted in community. So our campaign, Our Neighborhoods, Our Future, is fighting for the physical and social infrastructure that our communities need. We're pushing back on the scarcity framework that our communities often hear, where we get told there's not enough to go around, there's not enough to meet your needs. We're pushing back on corporate giveaways and privatization. And what we're doing is we're advancing a community-driven vision of the cities that we want. We're setting goals, like here in Pittsburgh, greening our water infrastructure, making sure that we have clean water for all of us to drink. In places like Seattle, we're building a vision for transit-oriented development that will stem displacement and allow communities to thrive, and one of those strategies includes expanding community ownership. We're building climate resilience to better prepare communities for climate disasters. And in these two examples and others, organizing thousands of people is critical to winning. So back to this important strategy of organizing people. I'm sure all of you took stock after the 2016 election. My organization and network certainly did. And one of the key things that we recognized is that we as a movement are not talking to enough new people. We're not creating enough opportunities for people to build long-term public relationships with other community members of different identities. And so one of the things I want to talk about today is this idea of organizing, which to us means building relationships that lead to a shared vision and that energize collective action. So this type of organizing, it expands beyond community engagement, which often focuses on the beginning of a project to get input. This type of organizing really connects thousands of people through neighborhood outreach. How many of you have done organizing or consider yourselves community organizers? So you all know the different ways that we do this. It's door knocking, It's one-on-one conversations, it's community meetings, it's town halls with hundreds or thousands of people, it's surveys, collecting stories, it's bringing people together to share those stories. And again, building relationship and creating vision. So organizing connects people, and one of the things that I think is really important about organizing is giving people a home, giving people an organization to deepen their investment in the vision they're creating together and to take collective action to win that vision. Building lasting community power that can also, after the win, after the policy, monitor, implement, enforce that vision that community helped to win, and then building off of that success, going beyond and building until we're raising the bar and we actually are much closer towards our vision. So I want to share an example of this from my hometown of Oakland, and I'll ask for the next slide. Thank you. So I live and work in Oakland, California. For 8 years, I was the director of our affiliate organization called the East Bay Alliance for a Sustainable Economy. And we had a huge opportunity when our Army base closed. It employed thousands of people. And that base is now becoming a trade and logistics center to service our port. It's a $1 billion project the size of 200 football fields. It's on publicly owned land, and most of the project budget came from taxpayer dollars. So for many, many years, my organization and many others were involved in an organizing campaign. One of the key things that really helped us develop our vision was a stakeholder process that one of our city council members convened. And this process really helped us develop a vision specifically for the types of jobs that would be on that piece of land. And that helped us really develop consensus around job standards for the project and our community benefits agreement. So we used a range of strategies. Hopefully this set of photos illustrates some of those strategies. Coalition building, of course, was important, bringing together young people, faith leaders, community members, union workers. We did a lot of education and leadership development, especially among young people. We did cultural events and concerts. We did vigils in town halls. We surveyed voters. We testified at city council. And all of these strategies helped us to build power and to win. And even some of the young people that you see in this picture, they started out as young leaders in youth-led organizations. They learned about economic development, they learned how to organize, and many of them actually became staff people of the organizations that they were leaders of. And as we went through this process, we learned about the low road practices in the warehouse industry and how they rely on temp workers. And so we said, we want the future warehouses to place restrictions on the use of temp workers. The young people, the faith leaders in our coalition, they were concerned about formerly incarcerated family members and community members not having a fair chance at these jobs. And so we demanded a ban-the-box policy to level the playing field so that formerly incarcerated folks returning back to Oakland could have a fair chance at getting those jobs. We knew our workforce development system wasn't strong enough to create an effective pathway from the community into these new jobs, and so we demanded that the revenue from the project would fund a community job center and really provide the outreach and services that community members would need to access these jobs. And so several years later in 2012, we won a nationally precedent-setting agreement, and that became the floor for future development projects in our city. So the organizing and deep engagement of residents and workers led to innovation and policy. And I'm really proud that our agreement with the city and the developers covers both construction and permanent jobs. It creates a 50% local hire goal, living wages, ban the box, the first ban the box policy for warehouses nationally, and a job resource center, and then also a community oversight board to monitor and enforce the agreement. One of the things that we learned is that winning the campaign is only part of the process. There's a really critical process afterwards of making sure that what the community won actually comes to fruition. So in the project's first 2 years, Oakland workers took home $8.25 million, which was 73% of the worker earnings on the project. We kept organizing, and 6 years later, just this year, we were able to win an agreement on the ports portion of this project, and we went even beyond on the ban the box policy. We were able to strengthen that and make it stronger than the city's policy and make it stronger than a state law that we won recently. So today, a decade ago when we started working on this project, we knew that we wanted to have a project that would really service the port, which is one of our economic engines. What we probably didn't know was how fast automation would happen. And so a decade later, we're in a situation where trucking and other transportation is being automated, warehouse jobs are being automated. So that's a real challenge that we're confronting. But because we've been organizing and we have a strong coalition, we actually have the building blocks to take on that challenge and really think about how does automation affect the rights of workers and the number and types of jobs. And what I'm really hoping is that we can share these lessons with communities across the country. There's communities across the country who are vying for Amazon's second headquarters, including here in Pittsburgh, right? How many of you have been engaged in the process around Amazon's bid and potentially having their second headquarters here in Pittsburgh? I know I met a few of you today. So it's really interesting. Amazon's very public search for a second headquarters, which they call HQ2, and you can advance to the next slide, that has really sharpened this existential question that we're asking at this conference. What is the kind of future that we want for our cities? And many of you have heard about the sheer size and scale of this project. 50,000 jobs, $5 billion in investment, so even the largest city could be transformed. And what I've been hearing as I've talked with folks here in Pittsburgh is that because of the smaller size of the city could be decimated. Someone told me just yesterday that when Google brought just a fraction of those jobs here, it rapidly became part of gentrifying the East Liberty neighborhood and displacing thousands of Black residents. And that's not the future that we want. So the partnership and our allies are setting an expectation nationally that Amazon and its short list of cities, 20 cities, create a transparent and inclusive process with community. And you can advance to the next slide. So we created our wish lists, and we know that the things that Amazon is interested in our cities are also the things that make us love living in our cities. So things like great education, museums, the infrastructure that moves people and things from place to place. And so we also know that those things that we love about our cities are things that we collectively built together by paying taxes. And so we want Amazon to pay their fair share if they're going to end up being our neighbor. So 130 organizations in 25 states signed on to this wish list. They joined us in calling for safe and affordable homes, work that sustains us and our communities, and the ability to build local wealth rather than wealth for corporations. And I think we've all seen, and we have an affiliate in Seattle, Washington, home to Amazon's current headquarters, that has seen the housing crisis in Seattle, that has seen their homeless population grow. And for all of the cities that are vying for HQ2, I think we are clear that we do not want to see the skyrocketing rents or a growing homeless population in our local economy. We don't want to see our local economy bend towards the desires of a single industry that reproduces racial inequities or income inequities. So we've been organizing since October for an open and transparent process. Little is known about what cities are offering to Amazon, and that really is the basis for a real conversation about the future of our cities. We want to build our cities together, so that bottom line ask of transparency and openness is really the basis for how we can build our cities together. I've got one more slide and one more story before I wrap up. In San Jose, California, they're a little bit ahead of us because Google is going through a similar process of expanding their headquarters. So in San Jose, Google wants to use a prime piece of public land and expand their campus with 20,000 workers. So our affiliate Working Partnerships USA and a great coalition called Silicon Valley Rising, they've been engaging the community for 9 months now. They've been doing meetings, surveys, town halls that have been bringing hundreds of people together. And just last week, they had a delegation of children deliver a set of demands to Google, a set of demands that they created over 9 months by doing community organizing. So they're calling on Google to ensure families can thrive as the companies grow, and the things that they're asking for are probably the things that you want here in Pittsburgh too. So first, partner with them to fight displacement, gentrification, and homelessness. Ensure families supporting jobs and a voice at work for local workers in construction as they build the campus, but also in the permanent jobs. 3, support local schools. Promote education and career opportunities for the children so that they can be the ones who gain access to those type of jobs. 4th, broaden access to transit and mitigate transit impacts. And then 5th, provide community oversight of the community benefits. So in exchange for the city's public resources, they're asking Google to address the impacts of its expansion by negotiating a comprehensive community benefits agreement. And this type of work is really the type of work that is foundational to our city's future. So how do we shape the future of our cities? Again, I really want to leave you with organizing people. There's a lot of ways that we're starting to communicate as a country, including social media and Twitter. But there's nothing that will really replace those one-on-one conversations and relationship building. So again, organize, build relationships, create a shared vision, and then energize collective action. One thing that's been really important to us as we've done this work across the country is getting a seat at the table, being able to negotiate directly, having control of shaping that vision together with your major employers in your city, with your elected leaders. And so again, the way that I think we can support building the cities of the future is organizing and connecting with our neighbors and building that community vision together. Thank you.